Happy Friday, Wrestling Inc. Welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily. It's me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, joined here today to have a little fun to look at the pro wrestling news of the past 24 hours. It's our good friend TK Trinidad. TK, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Que pasa? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We're having a great time here today. This is like what I do to baby bellies. I'm like, why do we do that?
But
Why do we?
yeah,
Yeah, why do we do that?
I don't know. I thought you were gonna get like a sponsor, or you're gonna like hit a sponsor button or something. Like,
No.
are we sponsored by
Yeah.
Pampers?
For all of you looking for your Pampers goodness, welcome to the Wrestling Inc. Daily. Wipe your butt, make it clean. It's Friday. You want to start that weekend off on a good note. Hey, we got a great show here for you today. We're going to talk all the news of the past 24 hours in just a second. We're going to dive into the mailbag later. We're going to talk even more about Samoa Joe. As a reminder, if you're listening to us in audio form and you're like, hey, how do I get to be a part of the live Wrestling Inc. Daily live party when we do it Monday through Friday? Well, it's 5 p.m. Eastern on all Wrestling Inc. social platforms. If you want to tune in, you want to be a part of the comment section, be a part of the show, just like our good friend John here. Hi, Nick and TK from West Texas. Happy Friday. Same from Gerard.
What's up?
Yeah, happy Friday for Wrestling Inc. And then let's see here. M. Casp. Good evening. Wow, it's kind of a downer. I went down with it.
Are you okay today? Are you like really happy it's Friday, or I mean,
Or am I on cocaine? Is that what you're asking? No, I'm not. I'm sorry. It's been years. No, it's that Friday fun. I got that energy in me. I got a big glass of healthy water here.
okay,
And I'm feeling good, TK. I mean, it's the end of the week. We got an open weekend ahead of us, you know?
there it is. Okay, just checking, just checking.
Why do we
All
do it?
right.
Pampers. I think I covered everything. Yeah, if you chat, I'll bring you up onto the screen. I think that's it. We got no interview today, so we're just going to talk the news. Let's get to it. News you can use, news that will leave a bruise, and this is some bruising news. WWE has released Samoa Joe. He issued the following statement after his release, which was, of course, brought to us by Fightful. He said, extremely fortunate and grateful to all the young and amazing talent I had the pleasure of working with in the past months, only saddened at the loss of an excuse to see their continued growth and achievement. I am very excited for their future and mine. Upside down face emoji. Now, Fightful here giving a couple more details about the release, saying there's a feeling among people in WWE that Joe was released as part of the further dismantling of the 2013-2021 vision of NXT and what Triple H had built. This is in line with veteran employees who were released on Wednesday. They were part of the Triple H era, such as William Regal, and Performance Center sources noted that within a few weeks of Joe relinquishing the NXT title and being made inactive in mid-September, there wasn't much of any chatter about him returning to the ring, and he had settled well into his new role. There was a feeling among some at the Performance Center that if Regal was to be released, then Joe would be also cut at the same time. There was also a feeling within WWE that Joe's going to continue his in-ring career outside of WWE. And when WWE issued a statement before the release began on Wednesday, they noted the talent would not be a part of the cuts. So the departure of Joe, Timothy Thatcher, Danny Burch, it's a pretty good sign that WWE saw them as being done in the ring as far as NXT goes. And lastly here, one WWE higher-up noted that Joe handled his situation as professionally as possible, and considering the last few years he's had here, that's easier said than done. All right, all out of the way. TK, what's your reaction to all this news here?
I mean, you're with a company in the last 2 years that has been releasing people left and right. I think I made note of it when I first started doing the Fridays, is I was with a company that they released people every Friday. So it's unfortunate. Nobody wants to get let go. Nobody wants to get fired. But you know, there's two ways to go about it. It's like you stay with the company and you're like, if it happens, it happens. Like, I have my ducks in a row, and it was been great, and you use it as great window dressing, because you could never take away the fact that you're a WWE superstar, period.
Right.
or you could be angry about it and blame the company. But it's kind of like if you're dating somebody and they show their true colors, and then you continue dating them, and then you're surprised that she scratches your car. It's like, but she scratched your car 6 months ago. Like,
Yeah, dude, she's been doing that. She put marshmallows in the windshield wipers. It's a whole thing.
exactly.
Yeah, I got it. I got it. Sugar in the gas tank.
So
All right, go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things where, and he's been in the game for a long time. I don't doubt if he wants to continue wrestling. I mean, he's Samoa Joe. Like, he's been around. There's no way that he won't be able to find places to wrestle for. The indie scene is blowing up. However, with COVID, things are very up in the air. There have been some promotions that kind of, or shows that kind of canceled it because of the rise in COVID cases. So,
Yeah.
that's one thing. But from what I can see, especially if you've been on the indie circuit, that you do a show and then you do another show. It's kind of like, when you're in the entertainment acting industry, it's like you do a show, the show is done, and it's kind of like you low key get fired because there's no more show and you have to look for something else. So I mean, I didn't expect him to do anything different. For all the stories I've heard about him, is he's been a really super nice guy. So I didn't expect him to, tear the locker room up, or, punch Vince McMahon in the face or something like that.
Yeah, and it's just weird to me because, like, again, I flash back. I keep going back to SummerSlam, where I was in Vegas and I was in this ballroom where they had dropped these 3 rings and I was allowed to watch this WWE tryout, and Triple H was there and Regal was there and Samoa Joe was there. And it feels like a dream now. It feels like a fever dream. And like
Mm-hmm.
Triple H talking about how Joe Brang, he's the guy that'll yell at you when it needs. Like, Regal's the nice one. He'll give you a hug, but Joe, he's the hard ass, right? Like, that was the kind of balance, I guess, Hunter was describing between.
Right.
This to me feels more like if you just have an opinion about the way things are going, or question kind of the way of things right now. I don't know. I think that's going to be the big test. It's, can you just blindly go along with the direction that is being put together here? And I'm spoiler alert, I have an interview with Kerry Silkin I'm going to be dropping on Monday here on the Daily, and he kind of presses me a little bit where he's like, well, what do you think's going on? And it doesn't seem that crazy to me, right? Like, they want to get away from producing talent on the independents or outside of a system that they don't control, where these
Right.
people could develop a style and opinions that WWE as an entity does not agree with. They want to
Right.
go right to the raw source. They want to find college athletes. They want college athletes and professional athletes to start thinking of WWE as a
As an
viable,
option.
right? Where I'm not going to go and be working next to some guy who's rolling around in light tubes. I'm going to be
Right.
working with another blue chip purebred athlete, and that's a model I could get behind. And it's going to take
Right.
years to get there, but you're either with it or you're not right now,
Yeah.
TK? Yeah,
It's the same thing with, like, it's no different than college sports. Like, you have a new coach come to the football team. If it's a new coach coming, then all the other coaches need to be very afraid, because the new coach is most likely going to bring in his people because he trusts his people. And then, some of the college athletes that they didn't sign, if they were promised to sign, they might not be going to that school because the coach already has something else in mind. So, on a business side of it, I can definitely see the direction that they're going in. But on a fan side, especially if you've been a fan for a long period of time, you're used to everybody gets comfortable in a certain thing, and then you all of a sudden you change it, you change the graphics, and you're just like, what is this? You start sounding like an old person who's complaining about everything, and remember saying, back in my day, I remember when WWE was like this. But you know they're up for change. And I think another thing too is that I think they're targeting, they already have us in the bag. You're paying for Peacock, you're going to still watch the pay-per-views. They already have us in the bag. We're still going to complain and tweet, they're not listening to us. But the people who are actually getting more money, the younger generation, they're going to gravitate to those college athletes. So, and they actually have more spendable income than than the 21-year-old did 10 years ago,
right.
because of all the other places. Like, I mean, Instagram now is like giving away, if you have a certain amount of followers, they're giving you $1,000 just to post reels. Like, so if you spend,
What
your
am
day
I
posting,
doing? What am I doing with my life, TK? Why is nobody
I
telling me these hacks? What?
I mean, Instagram sends you. I think you have to check your notifications. They send it to you, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to make $1,000? Just post some reels and hit this number, and we'll give you the money." So now you have teenagers having more disposable income, and WWE wants to get the newer people, but you can't get newer folks with older talent, unfortunately,
Yeah,
unless you're an established name. So on the business side, I get it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but if it proves that they make more money on the bottom line, at the end of the day, that's the whole thing. Like, WWE is about business. Like, it's about the bottom line. Like,
yeah,
it there's no other way for that.
yeah. And MCAS Peer jumping in saying, "What about PWG and Bola?" And my gut reaction is to say, well, that's probably your path to AEW now, right? Like AEW
Hmm.
is gonna like that's Tony Khan's
For
vibe
now.
for now, right? But
Hmm.
our good friend Sean Waltman, I'll never forget on his podcast, we were talking one day saying, if you're a big name indie talent that's drawing money, there will be a place for you, right? Like,
Hmm.
you look at we're in the middle of this. I don't even know the middle, probably the first third of this shift that Vince and Nick Khan are making right now. But
Right.
you're still seeing them. They want to retain Kevin Owens. They want to retain Seth Rollins. These are, I mean, indie guys, for lack of a
Right.
better, term.
Well, I mean,
You know,
I think after a certain point, like, yes, like AJ Styles is an indie guy, but is he still an indie guy? Like, I mean, obviously, if he were to get let go, and knock on wood, I don't wish that on him. Like, he will be fine. Like, and that's the thing. Anybody who's been with the WWE and they came from the Indies, if they were to get let go by WWE, a la Chelsea Green, a la Taya Valkyrie, the moment their 30 days was up, they were working. They're working everywhere. Chelsea Green's everywhere. Taya Valkyrie's just hit the
sure.
scene. She's on the plane to go somewhere this weekend. So if you had an indie background and you were at WWE for a bit, and you get let go, you're not going to miss a step if you know correctly, because that's the advantage of social media. On the flip side, if WWE develops the talent from scratch, and there was somebody, I don't want to say their name, but there was somebody who actually was on Sean's show, developed from scratch, got let go, and he had no idea what to do. Like, he had to, like, people actually helped him, and now he's fine. But
Right.
if you don't know, then you don't know. And maybe that's what WWE is kind of banking on. Like, if you don't have a plan B, and 20 or
Right.
30 shows that you can, bank on, all right, well, WWE lets me
Well,
go, I can just start working.
but
Maybe they're counting on that fear.
that is an even more incentive for them to hire all of these green people who can't be giving each other, Mikey Blanton and Brett Lauderdale's phone number and being like,
Hmm.
hey, don't worry, if this doesn't go bad, hit me up. We'll go run the GCW loop, right? Like,
Right.
that's the thing is, the Kevin Owens and the Seth Rollins, they have been around a while. That's why they are there. But we are going to see, at least in WWE world, bold prediction for the next decade, many less stories like that of guys that got
Hmm.
big on the independents. WWE made a play for, before they had a chance to get picked up by somebody else, or an AEW, I guess, in this situation now, and
Hmm.
took them through their system, brought them up, and made them a WrestleMania main eventer. I just don't know that we're going to see in WWE world that trajectory that much longer. If you want that kind of trajectory, the ladder to climb is Tony Khan, and Vince is very flagrantly saying, I don't want to compete with, I don't want to do your little
Right.
backyard wrestling, whatever model thing that you're
Hmm.
doing, your Carney, Mid-South style. We're
They're
looking
catering
forward. We're
yeah, they're
looking forward.
catering
Yeah.
they're catering entertainment, and WrestleMania is kind of like the Super Bowl. If you look at how, like, I mean, they had the Migos on the last pay-per-view. Like, if you look at, and they had oh my gosh, what's his name? The reality, the YouTuber turned boxer,
Oh,
Jake
the
Paul
Paul,
or
the
Luke Paul. The Pauls. They're catering to a certain demographic. The people for AEW typically are the people who watch other promotions or who are familiar with the indie scene, all this other stuff. For WWE, you're going for the name, and they're trying to build those names on top of that. Logan Paul, thank you.
yeah.
So it's two different things. So I again, WWE, and not to say AEW is not about money and business. They're just catering to a different demographic. But I am putting it out there, in the next 10 to 15 years, AEW is going to be along the same lines as WWE, and we're all going to dislike them as much as we dislike WWE, because that's the nature of big business. It just happens like that until fresh blood, a new president or a new somebody comes in and changes the whole thing.
All right. Well, hey, and Ace Shock here, by the way, saying Braun Strowman was a PC talent that got let go too. And yeah, to TK's point, that guy's not getting any bookings right now. Like, he has no idea how to play the indie game outside of WWE. And I know he made a lot of money there. He could be making money right now, but he doesn't. He just never played he didn't have that background. He just got fired.
Yeah.
He's out there adrift now, you know?
And maybe he wants to be. So let's not, maybe. And the thing too is, you can call certain people, like the same thing. Like, you can call certain people and say, hey, what's the deal, whatever. But yeah, if you're part of the new crowd, I don't know. There was one person who actually got let go. This is kind of, I'm not going to say her name, but she got let go, and she was a new talent, and she was requesting money for interviews. It's kind of like,
I definitely get
yeah.
that sometimes from some people. I don't like to name names either, but I'm sorry, I won't pay you. I apologize. Antonio Garcia here saying WWE is moving out of professional wrestling, so we need a third brand to compete with AEW. And
Impact.
I don't know. I'm not an Impact person myself. Not my flavor.
Impact is amazing.
I would like to see. I would like to see Jeff Jarrett come out and do something this year. And GCW to me is probably the big number 3 right now in the room. But I feel like, yeah, I don't even like. I keep thinking, like, in my head, I'm like, you could get a collective of wrestlers just kind of doing their own thing. Like, I don't know, but
you can. I think once we flatten out this COVID thing, because I think now people are kind of like, because I know a couple businesses who just went under. And this is the second go round, so I think people, I think the idea is there, especially with people being upset with WWE and then AEW with certain cases. I think the idea is there. It's just you don't want to put your money into something and then the world gets shut down again.
Yeah. Last WWE item before we get to an AEW note here, and then we're going to dive into the mailbag, talk some more about Samoa Joe, probably dive back more to this conversation a little bit. It was announced during this week's NXT UK episode that Walter's Last Stand is going to air next week. It's going to be his final NXT UK match. It's going to be against Nathan Frazier, a.k.a. Ben Carter, great high flyer. Walter will now be full-time with the NXT brand here in the States, which should have been obvious here from the way he was presented at New Year's Evil. I mean, look, I'm happy for him. I know there was, I think, personal reasons that tied him to the UK. I think some of that stuff has changed a little bit. So he's getting to finally come over here and spread his wild oats, so to speak, in the United States, fully focused. What do you think of Walter?
I mean, he has the look, the big guy, he can do storylines. I'm really hoping that, I definitely predict they're going to do the stereotypical storyline, but I hope he's not going to be stuck to that. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good move, but I would really, and I'm sure there's somewhere that the numbers between, NXT UK and NXT, yes, it's in a different company, it's part of the brand, but it's like the redheaded stepchild. So I'm just wondering how long NXT UK is even going to be around, because it feels like once the talent gets to a certain level, they just pull them, and then NXT UK is left to build again, because it's not like you can go the other direction, not as often. So it's just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I get it, but I also don't get it. It's kind of like equally, if all brands are on the same level, because remember NXT at one point was the C brand. Now all of them is on TV and stuff like that, except for NXT UK. But why can't you talk about NXT UK on NXT? At least make reference to it, like, hey, this is happening, or just like a 10-second breakdown or something, versus, well, if you see it, you see it. If you don't, we're gonna just bring them over and change their name to Dewdrop. So,
yeah. Well, and what I was gonna say is, it's gonna. I agree, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with NXT UK, because, was this a Triple H initiative? Was this something Vince thought of, where it's like, we're gonna be like McDonald's, we're gonna franchise all over the world? Hunter, make this happen for me. Maybe NXT UK is still very much part of that model. I don't know. But what we do know was that there were plans, had there not been the pandemic, to do like an NXT Japan, maybe Mexico,
I think
India.
China, because I think
China.
Cena was learning was he learning Mandarin or something
He,
to
he
be like the ambassador or something?
he's learned Mandarin. Go check out the video he had to make to apologize to China over Taiwan. I mean, the man speaks Mandarin. But like they had plans to do the international McDonald things, the franchise. So you're right that like if you get over in NXT UK, you're gonna get pulled into WWE's main NXT.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't supposed to be just like there was supposed to be like 6 other international NXTs. So it wasn't like if you were like everybody getting over in NXT UK gets to be called up because that's the only place that they have right now, I guess,
Right.
developing international talent. Probably would have been a little bit more selective if the full plan had gone to fruition. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I don't know. It's just um a lot of talent to if they had so much talent or they have so much talent and they're just not developing those storylines. So to me, I would have had more confidence if they had all this talent and now we're getting really great storylines across the board. Like I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, so if you had all these, NXT China, NXT Japan, I think NXT India was supposed to be a thing. You had all these. I don't have a lot of faith that they were going to develop really great storylines and or we had enough bandwidth to watch all of this wrestling. So now you're putting again, it's like a money's game. So it's like, okay, NXT is there. What's the money looking like? Because guaranteed there's going to be a certain amount of quarters happen and the money's not coming in.
Could literally go down this rabbit hole all day with you, TK, but I do not have time to go into how I feel like the hypothetical, because again, we're not talking about something that did happen, and maybe it will in the future, but something that could have happened. I think it's a fun debate, but it didn't happen. So if it does, they get back to developing new performance centers. We revisit this. All right, lastly, before we get to the mailbag, AEW noted on Twitter last night that a change has been made to the Battle of the Belts card due to medical protocol. Now, no other details were provided, but the match change was announced during the taped Rampage episode of TNT. This from the Observer. Word from AEW says everyone's okay. One match had to be changed due to late medical issues believed to be related to COVID-19. Not confirmed yet. Now, Rhodes was not in Newark, New Jersey for Wednesday's Dynamite TBS premiere, but there's no word yet on if his Battle of the Belts match is the one being changed. He did post a pro-vaccine message to his Instagram stories on Thursday morning, writing, "Please get vaccinated, if not for yourself, for the young kids, babies who can't defend themselves as easily from COVID," which is honestly, like, I think the best thing Cody's tweeted in a long, long time. I'm very sad to hear if he is the one to have COVID and this match is going away. Yeah, I don't know. Connect enough dots here, kind of makes sense, I don't know.
He either has it or he's been around somebody who's had it. Because
Right.
especially over the holidays, like I know a lot of people are like down for the count and they're down for like the 14 or 5 days or 10 days because they're around somebody who said it's kind of like one of those phone calls like, "Hey, I have something to tell you. I have COVID." And now you have to, you should do your due diligence and, quarantine yourself because you just don't know. So that's also a factor too. But, we have, I think, 2 new variants now. And they travel a lot. And Cody is a new dad and he's around a young child who can't get. So there's just a lot of, if it were me, my child is over wrestling every day. So it would behoove him to do that.
All right. Well, I think that's a good pivot to the mailbag here today. And yeah, everybody take care of yourselves, right? We're going into the winter, right? If you can, go get vaccinated, right? Wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance, all that stuff still in play. All right.
Yes.
Be good to one another. All right. At Wink Daily, WINC Daily. That's the account to follow over on Twitter. If you want to follow us and you want to vote in the daily poll or just find out when we're putting out what we're going to be talking about on the show, the links to new episodes, all that stuff you can find over on our Twitter account. All right. So today's poll question, based off of obviously the biggest news of the past 24 hours, Samoa Joe. So who would you like to most see Samoa Joe feud with outside of WWE? Now, I did list CM Punk and Bryan Danielson. I also threw in Okada, the biggest star in arguably biggest star in New Japan. And then I left room for everybody else. About 300 votes here. 50.6 want to see Samoa Joe resume his feud with CM Punk. 23% Danielson, 22.3 Okada, so about a tie there, and 4% for everybody else. So if Joe gets to go out and he gets to have one more feud or start another feud outside of WWE, who would you like to see it with, TK?
First thing to CM Punk for sure, and then Okada. Danielson, I'm not really, sure, but, and then who's to say he's going to AEW? Yes, it's kind of like the call up to AEW reminds me of the time where somebody was really doing really well at NXT, and then we're all like, when are they being called to the main roster? And then they get called to main roster, and then WWE messes them up. Not to say AEW is doing that with everybody, but we're just talking before we got on air, Ruby Soho and this yeah. So we'll see. Anything's possible.
I think Samoa Joe is just so obviously like somebody that Tony and his crew want there, right?
Of course.
If you were over an early 2000s Ring of Honor, you pretty much have a ticket to ride, I feel like, at AEW at the moment,
And then why not take the check? So
yeah, and I actually picked Danielson, the one you didn't want to see, just because I think Joe and Danielson are just both so nuts right now after not being able to wrestle for so long. I think those two would just go out there and just absolutely tear it down. I don't think it would be reckless abandon these two would have out in a ring right now,
Anything is possible. We'll see, because he has 30 days, 45 days, something like that.
I don't know that he does. Was he an employee or was he talent? He
did. Yeah.
Because if he was an employee and he was working back office, they may have just terminated his contract. He could show up anywhere. I will say, not a spoiler alert, I guess. We're gonna run a post here in about half an hour over on the website. It's a quote from Carrie Silkin, the interview I'm going to be releasing on Monday. I asked Carrie about Joe's release, and obviously Joe, former Ring of Honor world champion. Turns out Carrie had been texting with Joe earlier in the day and just decided to tell me about it. He said that Joe's going to take a month off to clear his head, do his own thing, and then he's going to figure it out from there. So even if he does or doesn't have a 30-day non-compete, it doesn't sound like, at least from what Carrie's saying, Joe's immediately going to be going and hitting a negotiating table. Maybe take a little breath here,
As he should. Yeah, especially, if you saved your money and you have, you should have about 6 months stacked up, folks. If you have that and you get let go, then, take a moment, because who knows, once you get back into that swing of things, who knows when you're going to have another moment, and maybe the another moment will be your last and you're done wrestling. So, take a moment, pause, come up with some ideas, and go from there.
The emotional rubber banding this guy. I had forgotten until I read our own report on the site. It's like, yeah, this guy got fired twice in the same calendar year by the same company. Like, man, that's like, I took you back and then you cheated again. And then it's like, yeah, then I think you sit alone in your room for a month and drink coffee and write poetry or something, dark
But
poetry.
again, if the girlfriend's been crazy though since you've known her, and then she's also been crazy with all the other boyfriends that you've seen online, are you really surprised, or you just take it with, she's, I'll just get a new car?
I want everybody that's been released to have to draw a picture of what they think WWE would look like as a person. Like, can you draw, if you could, what does that look like? And we'll put them all next to each other. And we'll just compare, right? Eyes. What do they hold? Knives. They all holding knives. I don't know. So, little therapy. 6 Rings 98.
It's so funny. Somebody said, sorry to cut you off, TK daddy's worth $2 billion. I was like, dang, I wish my dad was worth $2 billion. But it's not my dad.
I think his dad's worth more than $2 billion. I could be wrong. But anyway. When deciding who you guys want to see feud with next, let's see a couple Joe feud with next. A couple write-ins on Twitter. 6 Rings 9880. They want to see Tucker. Who don't? At Mateo Kokic 1. You cannot tell me I don't want to see a promo battle between Joe and Punk. That is money. Would it? I don't know. I feel like MJF is eating CM Punk's lunch right now. Are you agree with me or disagree on that?
I think MJF learned a lot. Like he came in great, but he was under the Jericho learning tree, and like he's great. I definitely, but I don't think so. I think CM Punk's holding his own. It's just
Okay.
different styles.
Okay. We have at Boston Armin, Shane Taylor, who gets a lot more attention than a lot of the recently released Ring of Honor talent, by the way. Food for thought. Seems to be a lot of Shane Taylor fans out there. Wink. We have Minoru Suzuki from Mark Canfor. I think I'm over the Suzuki run. I hate to say that. I watched so many Suzuki matches. I watched everybody get their rocks off, finally getting to wrestle Suzuki over here. I think I'm okay for the moment. I don't think I need to see another Suzuki match for a little bit.
I agree.
We have Miro. That's from your Earl Barnett. I like Miro.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that
a
would
lot
be
of
good.
actually a couple write-ins here from Miro. All right, let's hop over to the comment section here. We have a lot of none of you were talking about my topic. All of you were talking about how much Tony Khan's dad is worth, and it's JD88. I guess with no source cited, just 2022, $8.97 billion. And you know what? I believe it. Thanks.
There it is.
Total sense. All right, we're done. End of the week. TK, what do you want to put over here before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, just keep rocking with Women's Wrestling Weekly. We're gonna Women's Wrestling Talk. Wow, it definitely is Friday. Women's Wrestling Talk. We have a lot of interviews. We have a lot of shows. We have some review shows. We have a fashion show called Turnbuckle Glam that's coming out. So yeah, keep tuning into that. Really great website, great writers, all that good stuff. And you can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad.
All right. Yeah, come on back Monday. I'll have Michael Weissman here. ROH founder Kerry Silkin. We'll have the full interview up on Monday as well here on the show. If you like the Wrestling Inc. Daily, support us on iTunes. Leave a nice comment to end your week. That'd be so appreciative. Helps push us up the charts. Support WrestlingInc.com. Come back tonight after SmackDown for the Wrestling Inc. podcast right here. I'm at Nick_Hausman over on Twitter. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you on Monday. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.